I was serving pumpkin pie when my daughter-in-law leaned close and whispered the words that should have shattered my world. "Impregnant with your husband's baby, you tacky old woman." Her breath smelled like wine and malice. The dining room chatter faded. My heart should have stopped. My hands should have trembled. Instead, I looked into Amanda's cold blue eyes and laughed, not a nervous giggle, but a genuine, deep laugh that made everyone at the table turn and stare. I patted her hand gently and said, "Don't worry, dear. Congratulations on the pregnancy." Her perfectly made-up face flickered with confusion. She expected tears, screaming, chaos. What she got was something far more dangerous. My calm. "My name is Candace, and I have been married to Frank for 38 years. We live in a quiet neighborhood in suburban Connecticut. The kind of place where people mow their lawns on Saturday mornings and wave to each other from driveways. Frank retired from his accounting firm 2 years ago at 65, and I thought we would spend our golden years traveling, gardening, finally enjoying the life we built together. Our son Dylan is 32, a talented software engineer who works too many hours but loves what he does. 3 years ago, he married Amanda, and I was genuinely happy for him. Amanda seemed perfect at first. She was beautiful, in that polished way, with honey-colored hair, always styled just right, and a wardrobe that screamed success. She worked as a real estate agent and talked about her career with the kind of passion I admired. She called me on my birthday, brought wine to family dinners, and laughed at Frank's terrible jokes. I thought I had gained a daughter, but over the past year, something shifted. The warmth in her voice cooled to ice. She started making little comments about my age, my clothes, my cooking. "Candace, don't you think that wallpaper is a bit dated? Or maybe you should update your hairstyle, bring it into this century." I told myself she was just young, ambitious, too focused on appearances. I made excuses because I loved my son and wanted to keep the peace. Then I noticed the way she looked at Frank. It started small, a touch on his arm that lingered too long, leaning in close when he talked, laughing too loud at things that were not funny. Frank seemed different too. He bought new cologne, started going to the gym, took phone calls in the other room. I found a hotel receipt in his jacket pocket for a place downtown, dated on a Tuesday afternoon when he told me he was golfing. I could have confronted him right then. I could have screamed, thrown things, demanded answers. But something in my gut told me to wait, to watch, to learn exactly what I was dealing with before I made a move. So I swallowed my fear and played the role of the unsuspecting wife, while my world quietly crumbled around me. Thanksgiving dinner was supposed to be special. I spent 3 days preparing Frank's favorite dishes: roasted turkey with herb butter, mashed sweet potatoes, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce from scratch, and 2 pies. I set the table with my grandmother's china and the good silverware. My sister Ruth came with her husband, and of course Dylan and Amanda. The house smelled like cinnamon and comfort. Amanda arrived wearing a tight red dress that seemed more appropriate for a cocktail party than a family dinner. She hugged Frank first, holding on just a beat too long. She complimented everything in that fake way people do when they are not really looking. During dinner, she monopolized Frank's attention, asking him about his retirement plans, his golf game, his opinions on everything. Dylan barely seemed to notice. He was checking his phone, distracted by some work crisis. I watched it all from my seat at the head of the table. I watched Amanda's hand brush Frank's when she passed him the salt. I watched Frank's face flush when she smiled at him. I watched my marriage dissolve in real time over Thanksgiving turkey. And I said nothing. I just smiled and asked if anyone wanted more wine. After dessert, Amanda excused herself to help me in the kitchen. I knew something was coming. I could feel it in the air. That electric charge before a storm breaks. She waited until we were alone, then moved close, invading my space with predatory confidence. That is when she told me about the pregnancy, about Frank being the father, about me being a tacky old woman who could not satisfy her own husband. She delivered each word like a knife thrust, watching my face for the moment I would break. But I did not break. I laughed. And then I said something that clearly unsettled her. Congratulations on the pregnancy. I'm sure you'll figure out who the father is eventually. Her eyes widened, just a fraction. The mask slipped. She recovered quickly, but I saw it. Doubt. Confusion. The first crack in her armor. I walked back to the dining room, leaving her alone in my kitchen. My hands were steady as I poured coffee. My voice was warm as I chatted with Ruth. And inside, I was already 3 steps ahead. Because what Amanda did not know was that I had been investigating for 6 months. I knew things she could not imagine. And her little performance tonight had just confirmed everything I suspected. The game was on. And this tacky old woman was about to show her exactly what 68 years of life had taught me about survival. 6 months earlier, I noticed Frank acting strange. It started with small things. He password protected his phone when he had never bothered before. He took showers as soon as he got home. Even if he had just been running errands, he talked about joining a new golf club, making new friends, expanding his social circle in retirement. He bought clothes I never saw him wear. One Tuesday in May, I found that hotel receipt, the Riverside Inn, room 212. Checked in at 2 in the afternoon, checked out at 5. Frank had told me he was playing 18 holes at the country club. The receipt was for $198. I sat on our bed holding that piece of paper, and something inside me went very still and very cold. I could have confronted him. Part of me wanted to, but I remembered what happened to my friend Joyce when she confronted her husband about an affair. He denied everything, got better at hiding it, and cleaned out their bank accounts before she could protect herself. Joyce ended up with almost nothing in the divorce. I was not going to be Joyce. Instead, I called my friend Linda, who worked as a paralegal at a law firm downtown. I asked her, very quietly, if she knew any good private investigators. She gave me a name. Tom Bradley, former police detective, licensed, discreet, and thorough. I met him at a coffee shop in the next town over, somewhere Frank would never go. Tom was in his 50s, gray-haired, with kind eyes that had seen too much. I showed him the receipt. They don't touch except for professional handshakes. They look at documents together more than they look at each other. This doesn't feel like romance. It feels like business. That confused me. What business could Frank and Amanda have together? Frank was retired. Amanda sold houses. What could they possibly be planning? Then Tom caught them meeting with a third person, a man in his 40s, expensive suit, driving a luxury sedan. Tom ran his plates and identified him as Gerard Walsh, a real estate developer with a less than stellar reputation. Gerard had been involved in several questionable land deals, always skirting the edge of legality. And Amanda worked for Gerard's company. She was one of his top agents. Tom got photos of the 3 of them at a restaurant, papers spread across the table, pointing at what looked like property maps. Frank's face in those photos looked excited, animated in a way I had not seen in years. Amanda looked calculating. Gerard looked like a shark. I started digging into our finances. Frank handled most of our money, but everything was in joint accounts. I had access to the statements. I just never looked closely because I trusted him. What I found made my blood run cold. Over 4 months, Frank had withdrawn $75,000 in increments, small enough not to trigger bank alerts. The money went to an LLC I had never heard of, Pinewood Development Holdings. I looked up the business registration. It was registered to Gerard Walsh's office address. Frank had invested our retirement savings into whatever scheme Gerard was running, and he never told me. I felt sick, betrayed, furious. But I kept investigating because I knew there had to be more. Tom kept digging too. He discovered that Gerard had a pattern. He would pitch exclusive land development deals to wealthy retirees, promise incredible returns, take their money, and then the deals would collapse. Investors lost everything. Gerard would restructure, create a new company, and start again. He had been doing this for over a decade, across 3 states. Frank was not having an affair. He was being scammed. And somehow, Amanda was part of it. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Tom came to me with the worst news yet. Frank had taken out a second mortgage on our house. Our home. The one we bought 32 years ago when Dylan was a baby. The one I thought was paid off and secure. Frank had borrowed $120,000 against it, and he had forged my signature on the documents. I sat in Tom's office and stared at the paperwork. My husband had committed fraud. She needed a nuclear option. Something so devastating that I would either collapse or accept a quiet divorce to avoid scandal. If she could convince everyone that Frank got her pregnant, she could demand anything. The family would implode. Dylan would be destroyed. I would be humiliated. And in the chaos, Amanda and Gerard would disappear with all the money. But she made one critical mistake. She underestimated me. She thought age made me weak, that being a housewife for 40 years made me stupid, that I would shatter like glass when she dropped her bomb. Instead, I had spent 6 months building a case. I had evidence, documentation, witnesses, and a plan. Amanda played her final card at Thanksgiving dinner, and all she did was confirm that I was right about everything. When I laughed in her face and walked away, I was not being brave. I was being strategic, because the trap was already set, and she had just walked right into it. The morning after Thanksgiving, I woke up early and left Frank sleeping. I drove to Patricia Morgan's office in downtown Hartford. Patricia and I went to college together 45 years ago. She became one of the toughest divorce attorneys in Connecticut. I became a wife and mother. We stayed friends through the decades, meeting for lunch every few months, sharing the ups and downs of life. Patricia knew Frank, liked him even. This was going to hurt her almost as much as it hurt me. Her assistant brought me coffee while I waited. Patricia came out of a meeting, saw my face, and immediately ushered me into her private office. I laid out everything: the photographs Tom had taken, the bank statements, the forged mortgage documents, the business registration for Pinewood Development Holdings, Gerard Walsh's history of scams, Amanda's pattern of targeting wealthy families, and finally, Amanda's pregnancy announcement and her threat. Patricia listened to everything without interrupting. When I finished, she sat back in her leather chair and let out a long breath. "Candace, Frank has committed multiple felonies: forgery, fraud, possibly money laundering. Amanda is complicit in conspiracy to defraud. Gerard is the ringleader of what sounds like a multi-state criminal enterprise." "I know," I said quietly. "We need to bring in law enforcement," Patricia said. "This is beyond divorce court. This is criminal." "Not yet," I told her. "I need you to do something first." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." I laid out my plan. File for legal separation. Freeze all joint accounts so Frank could not move any more money. Put a hold on the house so he could not sell it or take out any more loans against it. Prepare all the divorce paperwork, but do not serve it yet. I wanted to keep playing along, keep Frank and Amanda thinking they still had the upper hand, while I gathered even more evidence. "You're setting a trap," Patricia said. "I'm finishing what they started," I corrected. Patricia made some calls. By noon, our joint accounts were frozen. By end of business, there was a legal hold on the house. Frank would find out soon enough, but it would take him a few days. That gave me time. I went home and acted completely normal. Frank was in the garage, tinkering with his golf clubs. I made lunch, asked about his day, smiled like everything was fine. He seemed nervous, kept glancing at me like he expected me to explode. "Did Amanda say anything upsetting yesterday?" he finally asked over sandwiches. I looked at him with what I hoped was innocent confusion. "Upsetting? Oh, you mean about the pregnancy?" "No, I think it's wonderful. I am so happy to be a grandmother." The relief on his face was almost comical. Then guilt flashed across his features. "Just for a second. Whose baby do you think it is?" I asked casually, like I was asking about the weather. Frank choked on his iced tea. "Dylan's, of course." "Why would you ask that?" "No reason," I said. Just seems like she told me first instead of her own husband. I thought that was strange. Frank changed the subject quickly. I let him. I was learning that silence and patience were more powerful than confrontation. Let him stew in his guilt. Let him wonder what I knew. 3 days later, Amanda called me. She wanted to meet for lunch. Just the two of us, she said. To talk about the baby, she said. I knew exactly what she really wanted. I agreed to meet her at an upscale restaurant in West Hartford, the kind of place where wealthy people had private conversations over expensive salads. I arrived early and chose a table in the corner. I was wearing a simple navy dress, pearl earrings, my wedding ring. I looked exactly like what Amanda thought I was. A harmless older woman, out of touch, and easy to manipulate. I had my phone in my purse, set to record. Connecticut is a one-party consent state for recordings. Amanda had no idea she was about to confess to everything. She arrived 15 minutes late. A power play. She wore designer sunglasses and a white pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She did not apologize for being late. She ordered sparkling water and a salad, then got straight to business. Candace? We need to talk about your marriage, she said. Do we? I asked mildly. Frank and I have been seeing each other for 8 months, Amanda said. No warmth, no guilt, just cold facts. We're in love. The baby is his. I have proof. She pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. Inside was a fake ultrasound image and what looked like DNA test results. I glanced at them without touching. They were obviously fabricated. Probably purchased online or created by Gerard's network of criminals. I'm prepared to keep this quiet, Amanda continued. But only if you cooperate. Divorce Frank immediately. Sign over your half of the house and the retirement accounts. You can keep your car and your personal belongings. If you fight this, I will tell Dylan everything. I will destroy your family publicly. The entire town will know that your husband left you for your daughter-in-law. Think about how humiliating that will be. I sipped my water and looked at her. Really looked at her. She was so confident, so certain she had won. She had played this game before and succeeded. She had no reason to think I would be any different from her other victims. Does Gerard know you're running this scam on your own? I asked quietly. Or is he part of it? The color drained from Amanda's face. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. For the first time since I had known her. She looked genuinely rattled. I pulled out my own envelope. Inside were copies of everything. Photos of her with Frank and Gerard, bank statements showing the withdrawals, the forged mortgage documents, Gerard's criminal history, her real name, Amanda Brenner, and records of her previous marriages and cons. I know about Pinewood Development Holdings, I said. I know about the land deal scam. I know Frank invested our money and you helped steal it. I know everything, Amanda. She recovered quickly. I had to give her that. You can't prove any of this, she hissed. Actually, I can, and I have been recording this entire conversation. I placed my phone on the table between us. Her eyes went wide. You can go to Dylan right now if you want, I continued calmly. You can tell him whatever lies you have prepared, but I have already prepared for that. I have a lawyer. I have evidence, and I have something you do not have. The truth. Amanda grabbed her purse and stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly. Other diners turned to look. You have no idea who you're messing with, she said, her voice shaking with rage. And you have no idea who you messed with, I replied. You thought I was just some tacky old woman you could push around. That was your first mistake. She stormed out of the restaurant. I sat there for a moment, my heart pounding. Then I saved the recording, sent a copy to Patricia and Tom, and ordered myself a glass of wine. My hands were shaking, but I had done it. I had confronted her and won. The next move was Amanda's, and I was ready for whatever came next. Amanda wasted no time. That same evening, Dylan showed up at my door. His face was red, his eyes wild with pain and confusion. He pushed past me into the living room, and I could see he had been crying. "Is it true?" he demanded. "Did Dad get Amanda pregnant?" I closed the door quietly and turned to face my son. "Is that what she told you?" "She's devastated, Mom. She says Dad seduced her, that she tried to resist, but he kept pursuing her. She says the baby is his and she has proof. She's upstairs packing right now. She says she can't stay in this family anymore." Dylan's voice cracked. "Tell me it's not true. Please tell me my father didn't do this." I guided him to the couch and sat beside him. "Dylan, honey, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Before you believe anything Amanda says, there are things you need to know." "What things?" he asked desperately. "Do you really believe your wife is pregnant?" I asked gently. Dylan hesitated. "We've been trying for 2 years. Nothing worked. We saw specialists. They said Amanda had fertility issues, that natural pregnancy was unlikely. And then suddenly she's pregnant and won't let me go to the doctor's appointments with her. She says she wants to wait until the second trimester to tell me details." He looked at me with dawning horror. "Oh, God." I went to my bedroom and retrieved the folder Tom had compiled. I brought it back to Dylan and sat down beside him again. "I hired a private investigator 6 months ago. Let me show you what I found." I took him through everything methodically. The photos of Frank, Amanda, and Gerard meeting repeatedly. The financial records showing Frank's withdrawals and the forged mortgage. Gerard Walsh's criminal history. Amanda's real name and her previous cons in other states. The land deal scam that had already defrauded dozens of families. The recording from lunch where Amanda tried to blackmail me. Dylan listened to it all, his face growing paler with each revelation. When I finished, he sat in stunned silence for a long time. "She married me to steal from us," he finally whispered. "Everything was a lie." "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," I said, putting my arm around him. "I should have said something sooner. I suspected something was wrong before the wedding, but I didn't have proof, and you were so happy. That's on me. I should have protected you." "No," Dylan said, shaking his head. "I'm an adult. I chose to marry her. I chose to believe her. I ignored red flags because I wanted to be in love." He looked at me with tears streaming down his face. "Is Dad really part of this? Did he really forge your signature and steal from you?" "Yes," I said quietly. "He did." As if summoned, Frank's car pulled into the driveway. Dylan and I heard him come through the front door, humming to himself. He walked into the living room and stopped cold when he saw us sitting together with the folder spread across the coffee table. "What's going on?" Frank asked, his voice tight. "Sit down, Frank," I said. It was not a request. He sat in the armchair across from us, his eyes darting between Dylan and me, calculating his next move. "Tell him," I said to Frank. "Tell our son what you did." Frank opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "I don't know what you think you know." "But Dad, stop," Dylan interrupted. "I've seen the evidence. Mom has photos, bank records, everything. Just tell the truth for once." Something in Frank crumbled. His shoulders sagged. He put his face in his hands and started to cry. I had been married to this man for 38 years, and I had never seen him cry. Not when his mother died. Not when Dylan was born. Never. "It was supposed to be an investment," he said through his tears. "Gerard approached me at the golf club about 8 months ago. He had this exclusive land development opportunity. Said investors were making returns of 30 to 40%. I put in some money, and it worked. I got returns. So I put in more. Our retirement savings." I said flatly. "I thought I could double it before you even noticed it was gone," Frank said. "I was going to surprise you. We could travel, buy a beach house, live the retirement we always talked about. But then Gerard needed more investors to close the next phase of the deal. He said if I could come up with another 100,000, it'd be a full partner. It'd make millions. So you forged my signature and mortgaged our house," I said. "I was going to pay it back," Frank insisted. In 6 months, when the development sold, it'd pay off the mortgage, and you'd never know. But then the deal started falling apart. Gerard said there were permit issues, legal problems. He kept asking for more money to fix it. That's when I realized. He stopped. Realized what? Dylan asked. That it was all fake, Frank whispered. There was no land deal. Gerard took all our money and disappeared. I lost everything. $195,000. Gone. And Amanda? I pressed. Frank looked at me with genuine anguish. Amanda came to me 3 weeks ago. She said Gerard was gone, but she had a plan to get us out of this. She'd tell you I got her pregnant, that we had an affair. You'd be so devastated and humiliated that you'd agree to a quiet divorce. We'd split the house, and whatever assets were left. Amanda would get her cut for helping, and I'd have enough to start over. Then she'd fake a miscarriage and move away. You agreed to destroy our son's marriage to cover your own crimes, I said. I was desperate, Frank said. I know that's not an excuse. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I never touched Amanda. We never had an affair. It was all just a story she made up. Dylan stood abruptly. You're both insane. You're criminals. And you, he pointed at Frank, you're not my father anymore. A father doesn't do this to his family. Dylan, please, Frank begged. No, Dylan said. I'm done. I'm filing for divorce from Amanda tomorrow, and I never want to see you again. There's one more thing you need to know, I said quietly. Both of them looked at me. I've been working with the FBI. The room went silent. What? Frank whispered. I pulled out another document from the folder. Gerard Walsh is part of a multi-state fraud investigation. Has scammed families out of millions of dollars over the past decade. When I realized what he was doing, I contacted the FBI White-Collar Crime Division. I gave them everything I had. They've been building a case for the past 2 months. Candace, what have you done? Frank asked, his voice hollow. What you should have done from the beginning, I said. I told the truth. The FBI is going to arrest Gerard and Amanda. You're going to be charged too, Frank. But I spoke with the prosecutor. If you cooperate fully, testify against Gerard and Amanda, they'll recommend a reduced sentence, probably 3 to 5 years instead of 15 to 20. Frank stared at me like I was a stranger. You're sending me to prison. You sent yourself to prison when you forged my signature and stole from me, I said. I'm just making sure you don't take anyone else down with you. Dylan looked at me with something between awe and fear. Mom, how long have you been planning this? 6 months, I admitted. From the moment I found that first hotel receipt, I knew something was wrong, so I started investigating. I found the fraud. I found Gerard's pattern. I realized Amanda was part of it, and I decided that I was not going to be another silent victim. I was going to stop them. The doorbell rang. We all froze. I stood and walked to the door, knowing exactly who it would be. 2 FBI agents stood on my porch, badges ready. Mrs. Candace, one of them asked. We have warrants for the arrests of Gerard Walsh and Amanda Brenner. Is Amanda here? She's at my son's house, I said, giving them the address. Dylan, you should probably call and warn her you're coming home. Dylan pulled out his phone with shaking hands. He called Amanda. She answered on the first ring. Her voice, sugary sweet. Baby, I'm so sorry about earlier. Come home so we can talk. The FBI is on their way to arrest you, Dylan said quietly. It's over, Amanda. He hung up. Through the phone we could hear her scream. The agents thanked me and left. Frank sat in the armchair, broken and defeated. Dylan stood in the middle of the room, looking lost. I'm sorry, I said to both of them. I'm sorry it came to this, but I couldn't let them get away with it. Too many families have been destroyed by people like Gerard and Amanda. It had to stop. What happens now? Dylan asked. Now we rebuild, I said. You file for divorce. Your father cooperates with the investigation, and I start my life over. Are you divorcing, Dad? Dylan asked. I looked at Frank. 38 years of marriage. Memories of raising Dylan together, buying our first house, dancing at our wedding, growing old side by side. All of it tainted now by lies and betrayal. Yes, I said. I'm divorcing him. Frank nodded slowly. He did not argue. He knew it was over. And just like that, my marriage ended, not with screaming or violence, but with quiet acknowledgement that some betrayals cannot be forgiven, only survived. The next morning, the arrests made local news. Gerard Walsh was picked up at a luxury condo in Miami, trying to board a flight to the Cayman Islands. Amanda was arrested at Dylan's house, where she had been frantically packing to flee. The news showed her being led out in handcuffs, her perfect hair disheveled, her face twisted with rage. I watched it on television while drinking my coffee, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. Frank turned himself in that afternoon, accompanied by the lawyer Patricia had recommended for him. He was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and money laundering. Because he cooperated immediately and provided extensive testimony about Gerard's operation, the prosecutor agreed to recommend a lighter sentence. Still, Frank was looking at 3 to 5 years in federal prison. Dylan filed for divorce that same day. Connecticut allows for fault-based divorce in cases of fraud and abandonment. Amanda would get nothing. She was facing 15 to 20 years in prison on multiple federal charges. 3 days after the arrests, I received an unexpected call. Amanda wanted to see me. She was being held at the Federal Detention Center in Hartford, awaiting trial. Her lawyer said she specifically requested a visit from me. I almost said no. What could she possibly have to say that I wanted to hear? But curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to look her in the eye one more time, wanted to see the woman who had tried to destroy my family brought to her knees. The detention center was cold and institutional. I went through security, signed in, and was led to a small visiting room with a table and 2 chairs. Amanda was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, her wrists in handcuffs. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair unwashed, eyes red from crying. The polished real estate agent was gone. This was Amanda Brenner, con artist, stripped of all her disguises. The guard removed her handcuffs and left us alone, standing just outside the door. Amanda sat down across from me. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. "You destroyed my life," she finally said. Her voice was flat, exhausted. "No, dear," I replied calmly. "You destroyed your own life. I just made sure you faced consequences for it." "I could have disappeared," Amanda said. "If you had just divorced Frank quietly like I wanted, I would have taken my cut and left. You'd never have seen me again. Dylan would have moved on. Everyone would have been fine. Except for all the other families Gerard scammed," I said. "Except for the next mark you would have found. Except for every future victim in your path. You think I did this just for me? I did this for every person you and Gerard hurt." Amanda laughed bitterly. "You think you're a hero? You're just a vindictive old woman who couldn't handle getting replaced. Is that what you tell yourself?" I asked. "That this was about jealousy? You tried to steal everything I built over 4 decades. You married my son under false pretenses. You manipulated my husband into committing crimes. You blackmailed me with a fake pregnancy, and you think I should have just let you walk away. Why do you even care?" Amanda snapped. "You have plenty of money. You could have started over. Instead, you sent your own husband to prison. You destroyed your son's marriage. You tore your family apart. For what? Revenge? Justice?" I corrected. "There's a difference." Amanda leaned back in her chair, studying me. "You want to know the truth? I'm not even pregnant. Never was. I bought a fake ultrasound online for $40 and fabricated those DNA results with software. The whole thing was a bluff." "I know," I said. "I knew from the moment you whispered it to me at Thanksgiving." "How?" "Because you're a terrible liar, Amanda. Or should I call you Amanda Brenner? That's your real name, isn't it? Before you became Amanda Walsh, and before that Amanda Harrison, and before that Amanda Cooper. How many names have you used? How many families have you destroyed? Amanda's jaw tightened. You don't know anything about me. I know more than you think, I said. My investigator found your real history. 3 previous marriages, all to wealthy men. 2 ended in divorce, where you walked away with settlements. 1 ended when your husband committed suicide after losing everything to one of Gerard's scams. You've been doing this for at least 10 years. He was weak, Amanda said coldly. If he couldn't handle losing money, that was his problem. I felt a flash of rage so intense it took my breath away. A man died, and you feel nothing. People die every day, Amanda said with a shrug. I didn't pull the trigger. I stood up, disgusted. You're a sociopath. Maybe, Amanda said. But at least I'm honest about who I am. You're the one who's lying to yourself, Candace. You think you're better than me? You think sending me to prison makes you morally superior? You're just as ruthless as I am. The only difference is you hide behind righteousness. The difference, I said quietly, is that I protect people and you destroy them. That's not righteousness. That's basic human decency. Something you clearly lack. I walked to the door and knocked for the guard. Before I left, I turned back to Amanda one last time. You called me a tacky old woman, I said. You thought my age made me weak. But you know what age really gave me? Perspective. I've lived long enough to know that people like you always lose in the end, not because of karma or justice or fate, but because you're hollow inside. You have no real relationships, no genuine connections, nothing that actually matters. You're going to spend the next 15 years in prison, and when you get out, you'll be middle-aged and alone. That's the real tragedy of your life, Amanda. Not the prison sentence. The emptiness. Her face crumpled. For just a second I saw something real in her eyes. Pain. Regret. Fear. Then it was gone. Replaced by cold anger. Get out, she hissed. I left without another word. That night, Dylan came over to my house. We ordered Chinese food and sat on the couch, eating directly from the containers like we did when he was a teenager. I saw the news about Amanda's arraignment, Dylan said. She pleaded not guilty. She'll take a plea deal eventually, I said. Her lawyer knows she has no case. The evidence is overwhelming. How are you doing with all this, Mom? Dylan asked. Really? I set down my lo mein and thought about his question. I'm sad. I'm angry. I'm relieved. I'm proud. I'm scared. I'm all of it at once. I keep thinking about how I didn't see it, Dylan said. All the red flags. The way she always needed money. The way she isolated me from my friends. The way she flirted with other men, including Dad. I saw it all, and made excuses. She's a professional, I said gently. This is what she does. You can't blame yourself for being manipulated by someone who spent years perfecting the art of deception. Do you blame yourself for not stopping my wedding? Dylan asked. I thought about that. Yes and no. I had suspicions, but no proof. You were an adult making your own choices. If I had tried to stop you without evidence, you might have resented me for it. I made the best decision I could with the information I had at the time. That's all any of us can do. I'm going to therapy, Dylan said, to work through all this. The betrayal, the shame, the trust issues. I don't want this to ruin me. I hugged him. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of you too, Mom, he said. What you did, standing up to them, gathering evidence, working with the FBI, you could have just fallen apart. Instead, you fought back. You're the strongest person I know, as I held my son. I thought about Amanda's words. That I was ruthless. That I destroyed my own family. Maybe there was some truth in that. I did send Frank to prison. I did cooperate with authorities knowing it would tear apart the life I had known for almost 4 decades. But I also thought about all the families Gerard and Amanda had destroyed. The man who committed suicide, the retirees who lost their life savings, the children who had to watch their parents' marriages crumble under financial strain. I thought about my own brother, who lost everything in a similar scam 12 years ago and never recovered. I did not do this for revenge. I did this because someone had to stop them. And if that made me ruthless, then so be it. I could live with ruthless. I could not live with complicit. The trial took 9 months to go through the system. Gerard pleaded guilty to 37 counts of wire fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. He was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $23 million in restitution to his victims. He was 64 years old. He would likely die in prison. Amanda fought harder. She went through 3 different lawyers before finally accepting a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and blackmail. She was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. She was 34 years old. She would be almost 50 when she got out. Her youth and beauty gone. Her con artist career over. Frank's sentencing hearing was the hardest day of my life. I sat in the courtroom and watched my husband of 38 years stand before the judge. He had cooperated fully with the prosecution, provided crucial testimony against Gerard, and shown genuine remorse. The prosecutor recommended the minimum sentence. The judge was a woman in her 60s. Stern, but fair. She listened to Frank's statement, where he apologized to me, to Dylan, to all of Gerard's victims. He cried. He talked about his greed, his stupidity, his failure as a husband and father. He did not make excuses. He accepted full responsibility. Then the judge asked if I wanted to make a statement. Patricia had prepared something for me, but when I stood up, I set the paper aside and spoke from my heart. Your Honor, Frank broke my trust in ways I can never repair. He stole from me. He lied to me. He forged my signature and put my future at risk. What he did was criminal, and he deserves to face consequences. I paused, looking at Frank. He was staring at his hands, tears streaming down his face. But I also know that Frank was a victim before he became a perpetrator. Gerard Walsh targeted him specifically, manipulated his desire to provide a better retirement for us, and exploited his trust. Frank made terrible choices, but he also got caught in a sophisticated criminal operation designed to prey on people exactly like him. I took a breath. I don't forgive him. I can't. Our marriage is over, but I also don't want to see him destroyed. Hess cooperated fully with the authorities. Hess helped put away a dangerous criminal, and I believe Hess genuinely remorseful. I ask that you show him the mercy he didn't show me when he forged my signature. Give him a chance to someday rebuild his life. The judge sentenced Frank to 3 years in a minimum security federal facility, followed by 5 years of probation. It was the lightest sentence she could give under the sentencing guidelines. Frank was led away in handcuffs. He looked back at me once. I did not wave. I just sat there, watching my old life disappear through a courtroom door. The financial recovery took even longer. The FBI managed to seize some of Gerard's assets, including a vacation home in Florida and several luxury cars. Those were sold, and the money divided among the victims. I received $42,000 back out of the $195,000 Frank had lost. Better than nothing, but not enough to save our house. I sold the house in Connecticut. It was too big for me alone, and it held too many painful memories. After paying off the fraudulent mortgage and settling debts, I walked away with about $200,000. I also had my mother's inheritance, which I had kept separate and safe. Altogether, I had enough to start over, but I would have to live much more modestly than before. Dylan helped me find a small condo overlooking Long Island Sound. It had 2 bedrooms, a tiny balcony, and a view of the water. It was about a quarter of the size of my old house, but I loved it immediately. It felt like freedom. Dylan moved in with me temporarily while his divorce was finalized, and he processed everything that had happened. We became closer than we had been since he was a child. We cooked dinner together, watched movies, took long walks on the beach. He started therapy and did the hard work of healing. I watched him slowly come back to life. I started attending a support group for fraud victims. That's where I met Henry, He was 72, a widower who had lost his wife to cancer 3 years earlier, and then lost his retirement savings to one of Gerard's scams shortly after. He was kind, soft-spoken, with gentle eyes and a dry sense of humor. We started talking after meetings. Then we started having coffee. Then we started having dinner. It was not romance at first. It was two people who understood loss and betrayal, finding comfort in shared experience. But gradually, over months, it became something more. Henry made me laugh. He listened when I needed to talk. He held my hand when I cried. He asked nothing of me except to be present, and that was a gift I had not experienced in decades. One evening, about a year after Frank went to prison, I told Dylan about Henry. "Are you dating him?" Dylan asked. "I think so," I admitted. "Is that okay?" Dylan smiled, the first real smile I had seen from him in months. "Mom, you deserve to be happy. Dad made his choices. You don't owe him anything, least of all loneliness." Henry and I took things slowly. We traveled together, day trips to museums and botanical gardens. We volunteered at a community center that helped seniors avoid financial scams. We built a friendship first, and romance grew out of that foundation. It was entirely different from my marriage to Frank, and that was exactly what I needed. I also became an advocate. I started giving talks at senior centers and community groups about how to recognize financial scams. I shared my story, not as a victim, but as someone who fought back. I helped other people file complaints with authorities. I connected fraud victims with resources and support groups. I turned my pain into purpose. 1 year and 8 months after Amanda's arrest, I received a letter from her mother. Her name was Helen, and she was 76 years old, living in a nursing home in Ohio. The letter was handwritten, shaky, full of spelling mistakes and crossed-out words. She wrote that Amanda had been a troubled child, diagnosed with conduct disorder at age 12. She had a history of lying, stealing, manipulating people. Helen and her husband had tried everything: therapy, medication, tough love, unconditional support. Nothing worked. Amanda just kept hurting people. She had dropped contact with her parents 15 years ago, changed her name, and disappeared into a life of cons and schemes. Helen was dying. She had stage 4 cancer. Before she died, she wanted to apologize to me for what her daughter had done. She knew it was not her fault, but she carried the guilt anyway. She asked if I could find it in my heart to forgive Amanda, not for Amanda's sake, but for Helen's. She wanted to die believing her daughter might still have a chance at redemption. I cried when I read that letter. I cried for Helen, who loved a daughter incapable of loving her back. I cried for all the parents who watch their children make terrible choices and blame themselves. And I cried because forgiveness is complicated, and I did not know if I had it in me. I wrote Helen back. I told her that what Amanda did was not her fault, that she did her best as a mother, and sometimes people make choices that have nothing to do with how they were raised. I told her that I hoped Amanda was getting help in prison, that she was working on understanding her disorder and changing her behavior, and I told her that I forgave Amanda, not because Amanda deserved it, but because Helen did. Because a mother should not have to die carrying the weight of her daughter's sins. 2 months later, I received a letter from Amanda herself. It was mailed from the federal prison in West Virginia, where she was serving her sentence. The letter was short, written in careful handwriting. She said she had been diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder and was participating in a therapeutic program designed for inmates with her condition. She was learning about empathy, consequences, and the damage she had caused. She did not ask for forgiveness. She did not make excuses. She just said she was sorry for what she had done to me, to Dylan, to all the families she had hurt. She said she understood if I never wanted to respond, but she wanted me to know that she was trying to become a better person, even though she knew it might be too late. I read that letter 3 times, then I wrote back. I did not offer forgiveness or reconciliation, but I told her I was glad she was getting help. I told her that change is always possible if someone is willing to do the hard work. I told her that when she got out of prison in 13 years, she would have a chance to build a different life, and I hoped she would take it. It was not friendship. It was not absolution. It was just one human acknowledging another's attempt at growth, and somehow, that felt like enough. 2 years and 4 months after that Thanksgiving dinner, I stood in a garden in Vermont watching my son marry a wonderful woman named Sarah. She was a third-grade teacher with a warm smile and a genuine heart. She treated Dylan with kindness and respect. She knew his whole story and loved him anyway. When Dylan introduced us, Sarah hugged me and said, "Thank you for raising such a good man." The wedding was small, just close family and friends. Henry stood beside me as Dylan and Sarah exchanged vows. I cried, but they were happy tears. My son had survived betrayal and found real love. He had done the work to heal, and now he was getting his second chance. During the reception, Dylan asked me to dance. As we swayed to the music, he said, "When Amanda told you about the pregnancy at Thanksgiving, why did you laugh?" "I've always wondered." I smiled, remembering that moment. I laughed because I saw her desperation. She was playing her final card, the nuclear option she had been saving, and I knew that meant I had already won. When someone shows you their last weapon, you know they have nothing else left. She thought she was destroying me. She was actually revealing how weak her position had become. "Did you ever doubt yourself?" Dylan asked. "Wonder if you were doing the right thing by going to the FBI?" "Every single day," I admitted. "Especially when it meant sending your father to prison." I lay awake so many nights questioning everything, but then I thought about my brother, who lost everything to a scam like Gerard's. I thought about that man who committed suicide after Amanda destroyed his life. I thought about all the future victims if I stayed silent, and I realized that sometimes love means fighting, not surrendering. Dylan hugged me tight. "I'm so proud to be your son." Later that evening, I stood on the terrace overlooking the mountains, and I thought about the journey that brought me here. I thought about that woman I used to be, the one who kept quiet to keep the peace, who made excuses for bad behavior, who valued politeness over protection. Amanda was right about one thing: I did become ruthless, but not in the way she meant. I became ruthless about protecting the people I loved, ruthless about demanding honesty and accountability, ruthless about refusing to accept betrayal as the price of keeping a family together. I lost my house. I lost my marriage. I lost the comfortable retirement I had planned, but I gained something more valuable. I gained myself. For 38 years, I defined myself as Frank's wife, Dylan's mother, a supporting character in other people's stories. The betrayal forced me to discover who Candace was on her own, and I liked her. She was strong, she was smart, she was brave. Henry joined me on the terrace, handing me a glass of champagne. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how Amanda called me a tacky old woman and thought that would break me," I said. "She thought age made me weak, irrelevant, easy to dismiss. And instead," Henry prompted, "instead, age made me dangerous," I said with a smile. I had patience she didn't expect. I had resources she didn't know about. I had nothing left to lose and everything to protect. You don't underestimate a woman who has survived 68 years of life. We've raised children, buried parents, weathered storms. We know that dignity is not given, it's chosen. And we know that the best revenge is not cruelty, it's living well. Henry kissed my cheek. "You're remarkable. You know that." "I'm a survivor," I corrected. "There's a difference." That night, back in my condo, I sat on my balcony and watched the moon shimmer on the water. I received a text from Dylan. A photo of him and Sarah, both laughing. Another text from my sister Ruth, saying how beautiful the wedding was. A voice message from Henry, saying he was home safely and couldn't wait to see me tomorrow. My life was smaller now, but infinitely richer. I had people who genuinely cared about me. I had purpose beyond maintaining appearances. I had freedom to make my own choices without asking permission. I had learned that you can lose everything material and still have everything that matters. If I could go back to that Thanksgiving dinner and warn myself about what was coming, would I? I do not think so, because as painful as it was, that journey transformed me. It taught me that strength is not about never falling, it's about how you rise. It taught me that silence in the face of wrongdoing is not peace, it's complicity. It taught me that sometimes protecting the people you love means being willing to tear down the structures that are harming them. Amanda thought she was taking my life. She actually gave it back to me. Frank thought he was securing our future. He actually freed me from a marriage that had stopped serving either of us years before we admitted it. Gerard thought he could prey on vulnerable people forever. He learned that eventually, someone will fight back. And I learned that being called a tacky old woman by someone with no moral compass is actually a compliment. Because I would rather be genuine and unfashionable than polished and cruel. I would rather be old and wise than young and manipulative. I would rather be tacky and true than elegant and false. The greatest mistake predators make is underestimating women who have survived decades of life. We have raised children through illness and heartbreak. We have buried people we loved. We have weathered economic downturns, personal failures, health crises, and disappointments that would have crushed weaker souls. We have learned patience, strategy, resilience, and the fine art of choosing our battles. We are not weak. We are not foolish. We are not to be dismissed. We are dangerous in the best possible way. We protect the vulnerable. We speak truth to power. We refuse to be victims. And when pushed, we push back with everything we have learned over a lifetime of surviving. So, if you are facing your own betrayal right now, here is what I learned. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate. Do not let people gaslight you into doubting your own perceptions. Do not react emotionally. Respond strategically. Take time to gather evidence. Build your case. And understand the full scope of what you are dealing with. Document everything. Save emails, texts, receipts, and recordings where legal evidence is power, and you will need it. Build your team. Find a good lawyer, a therapist, a financial advisor, and friends who will support you through the hard days. You cannot do this alone. Remember your worth. Nobody gets to diminish you, betray you, or steal from you without consequences. You deserve honesty, respect, and justice. Justice takes time. Be patient and persistent. The system moves slowly, but it does move. Do not give up. Forgiveness is for you, not them. Let go of bitterness, because carrying hatred only poisons your own life. But forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. You can forgive from a distance. Your life is not over. No matter how old you are, no matter how much you have lost, you can rebuild. It will be different, maybe smaller, but it can be better. You get to choose who you become next. That Thanksgiving dinner changed everything. Amanda's whispered threat was supposed to break me. Instead, it freed me. She thought she was taking my life. She actually gave it back to me. I am 68 years old. I live in a small condo instead of a big house. I am divorced instead of married. I have less money, fewer possessions, and a completely different life than I planned. But I also have peace. I have purpose. I have genuine relationships built on honesty instead of obligation. I have self-respect. And I have the quiet satisfaction of knowing that I fought back. I protected my son. And I helped stop predators who were destroying families. The best revenge is not cruelty. It's living well. It's refusing to let betrayal define you. It's choosing to rise instead of fall, to fight instead of surrender, to become stronger instead of bitter. Amanda is in prison. Gerard is in prison. Frank is rebuilding his life in another state. Dylan is happily married to a wonderful woman. And I am sitting on my balcony, watching the sunset, feeling more free and more myself than I have ever been. Don't let anyone ever call you tacky or old or irrelevant and make you believe it. You are a survivor. You are stronger than you know. smarter than they think, and capable of more than you imagine. Survivors don't just endure. We rise. And that, my friends, is the greatest victory of all. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a moment where someone underestimated you because of your age, your gender, or your circumstances? How did you prove them wrong? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story touched your heart or inspired you in any way, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and reminds us all that we are not alone in our struggles. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges and finding the strength to overcome them. We share new stories every week, and I promise they will make you feel something real. And please, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe it's a friend going through a difficult divorce, a family member facing betrayal, or someone who just needs a reminder that age is power, not weakness. Your share might change someone's life. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community. And remember, no matter what challenges you are facing right now, you have everything you need inside you to rise above them. You are stronger than you know. Until next time, take care of yourself, trust your instincts, and never let anyone make you feel small. You are not small. You are mighty.